All right, guys, welcome back to lesson 110. 10 lessons left after this one, honestly. Yay! We're almost done with the book. Great times in Algebra 1. Today is actually kind of an important lesson. You do need to know how to do the quadratic formula. And so we're going to dive into it. The first thing I'm going to do is not jump into example 1. I'm actually going to show you how we get this formula. Because it does make sense how we get it. And then once we know how to do that, realize that this formula is used to find the zeros, okay? We're going to find zeros or the roots, which is what you have been doing with factoring. The reason you started to factor all those things was to be able to find the solution or the zeros or roots to a quadratic function. Now, sometimes it's actually impossible to factor out. And this is what we're going to use when we can't factor out. And it's very easy. I think it's not that hard. And if you were in class with me, I would actually make you memorize it. I know that some of you are just using your books and whatever when you're doing your tests, but you know, it's up to you. Because when you get to Algebra 2 and you have to do this without any books, that's on you, not me. I already know how to do it. In fact, I know that most of you are talking behind my back and whatnot, that I'm such a bad teacher, I'm such a bad person and whatnot. I am not. I'm just trying to help you understand something. I already went to college. I already know this stuff. I already know how this world works. I already have a job. I'm not playing games. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. If you guys are playing games and thinking that you know whatever it is that you think you know, you're wrong. I can guarantee you that. And at some point in the future, you'll recognize that what I was trying to do was help you. Not trying to be a bad guy or trying to make your life difficult. In fact, I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. But if you think that life is hard right now, you just wait until you grow up. Because the Bible never says that this world is going to get easier. In fact, it's going to get harder and harder. And as we can see it, the times we're living right now, it's getting harder and harder. So what I'm trying to tell you is stick to what you're supposed to be doing. Do what you're supposed to be doing, because the Bible literally says that obedience is better than sacrifice. So God doesn't want anything else except obedience. And part of being obedient is doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I hope that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And so I'm not trying to make anything difficult for you. Those who have ears to listen, may they listen. That's what the word says, all right? So let's jump into how you actually get the quadratic formula. All right, so this is what we've used before for a quadratic function, right? A regular quadratic function is going to be a x squared plus bx plus c. So what we're going to do actually is we're going to complete the square. All right, so to be able to complete the square, the first thing that we need to do is get rid of the coefficient in the quadratic term. Or in the first term, we have to get rid of the coefficient, the a, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to divide the whole thing by a. And so what we get is x squared plus b x over a plus c over a equals 0. Then we have x squared equals, and I'm going to move everything else to the left, okay? I'm going to have bx plus c. No. Not everything else, because we have to complete the square. Come on. I just said that we had to complete the square. What we need to do is move the CA over to this side. So plus BAX equals negative CA. Right? So far, so good. Now we're going to complete the square, all right, in here. How do you complete it? Remember, is B over 2 squared. So it's going to be x squared plus BAX plus b over 2, but don't forget the a squared, equals negative ca plus b over 2a squared. Any, hope, I was going to ask any questions. I'm so used to doing this in classroom. But hopefully you see what I'm doing, right? That's exactly what you're supposed to be doing at first. So then we're going to square both b's, right, in here. And so I'm going to get x squared plus bax plus b squared over 4a squared equals negative c a plus b squared 4a squared. Right? So far so good? I think so, right? I mean, hopefully you guys are able to see it. Let me check my camera work. Ooh, that b squared over 4a. I think the glare is not really going to affect that. Let me just keep on going and see what happens. Okay, so now that we see this, what we need to do is, first of all, get this into the factorization that we want, which is x plus b over 2a squared. Okay? I don't know why that b looks like that. I don't like it. I'm changing it. Oh, there we go. And this a2 could be better. That's what we get there. And then in this side, we're going to have to find a common denominator. The common denominator between a and 4a squared is obviously 4a squared. And so we're going to have a common denominator of 4a squared. And to do that, we have to multiply this side by 4a, right? And so this is going to be 4ac, and this is going to be b squared. Now, because this is positive and this is negative, I'm going to move the positive here, b squared minus 4ac. Hopefully it's not super complicated, right? So what I did was I moved the b over here, and the c became a 4ac because I multiplied this first term on the right side by 4a, right? So 4a is going to be 4ac because I had to combine both rational expressions there to make it into one. So far, so good. Now, the problem here is that we need to get rid of the square. So we have to square root both sides. Because what we're trying to do from the beginning is solve for x. I guess this would be a very important part right now, solve for x. So we have to leave x by itself. That's why we're doing all of this. So now that we did this, what we're going to see is that in this side, we're going to have x plus b over 2a, not a, 2a. 2a equals, and then we have square root, right? Now, what is square root of b squared minus 4ac? I know some of you are going to be tempted to say, oh, square root of b squared is going to be b. But that's not just a b squared. This is not a monomial. This is a binomial because it has the minus sign. So this you cannot kind of like get rid of. This, on the other hand, it's different because this is a monomial. Okay, the denominator is a monomial, but the numerator is a binomial. And so the binomial is all going to go underneath the radical, and it's going to be b squared minus 4ac. That is all going to go over, what is square root of 4? Square root of 4 is 2, and square root of a squared is a. So it's going to be 2a. Oh, okay. So we have x plus b over 2a equals square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a, right? Now that is going to be almost it, because if we're solving for x, leaving x by itself, we just have to move this over here and we're done. That's pretty much it. So we're going to say x equals, and this is where the quadratic formula is. We're going to subtract b over 2a, right? From both sides. And the good thing is that 2a and 2a are already common denominators. So the whole thing is going to be over 2a. No problem there, right? But the way that we do it is we're going to put the negative b in front of that plus b squared minus 4ac. Now realize something. about square roots. Square roots can be both positive and negative. What do I mean by this? What is the square root of 49? The square root of 49 is positive 7 and negative 7. The square root of 4 is positive 2 and negative 2. That's why this positive sign here, it's really going to be plus minus, because we don't know what's going to be underneath it. And so, let me fix my b there. This will be my quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. This is the quadratic formula. This is something that we're going to be using a lot of. Hopefully you understood how I got it. And now let's actually get into the examples that you need to know for the lesson. Well, I was looking at it and I realized that some of you might not have been able to see the bottom part because of the glare. So now hopefully you can see it. It's when I square rooted both sides and when I actually got x equals negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And that would be the quadratic formula. All right, so example 1 is x squared minus 9x plus 20. Sorry, forgot the x. Equals 0. And then we have it's just a reference, okay? Ax squared plus bx plus c, so that we understand where the a, the b, and the c are. But how do we find the zeros, right? We're looking for the zeros because we have a 0 here, or the roots of that quadratic function. To be able to do that, we need to find we need to know the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula, again, and I'm going to be saying it a lot during this video, x equals b minus b plus minus, sorry. No, that's not it. This is why you need to know it. Okay? It's minus b, negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. That's what we're going to use to be able to solve this. So how do we do this? Well, very easy. We're just going to use the letters here and replace them with the letters here, but obviously we can't use these letters. We have to use this ones. So we understand. What is a? A is going to be 1 because the coefficient of the first term is 1. So we have 2 times 1 here. And what is b? B is going to be 9. What type of 9 though? It's negative 9. So negative and negative is positive. So we have 9 plus minus square root of negative 9 squared, right? Minus 4 times 1, because a is 1 and c is 20. That's what x is going to be, okay? X is going to be 9 plus minus square root of negative 9 squared minus 4 times 1 times 20. Cross parentheses over 2, or 2 times 1. 2 times 1 is going to be 2. Yay, 9 is going to be 9 plus minus square root of 81 minus, what is 4 and 20? It's going to be 80. So x is going to be 9 plus minus square root of 1 over 2, which is going to give me 2 things. And this is important. Sometimes we are going to, and for the most part, we're going to get 2 answers. Why? Because most of these are for 2 roots, okay? It's going to be a 2-root type of answer. So it's going to be 9 plus 1, which is 10 over 2. It's going to be, so we have 10 over 2 for the first one, which is positive 5. For the second one, we have 9 minus 1, which is going to be 8 over 2. It's going to be 4. So we have x equals 5 and x equals 4, right? Now we have to check. How do we check? We have to put it all the way in the back. So I'm going to try to check it mentally because your book does it written out anyway, but we're going to start with the 5. 5 squared is going to be 25 minus 9 times 5 is going to be 45, okay? So 45 minus 25 is going to be negative, it's going to be negative 20. And negative 20 plus 20, it will be 0. So 5 is an answer. Now, hopefully the glare is not, it isn't too bad. I think most of you can see it. Maybe if I can make this darker. Booyah! And the square root of 1. Yay! Now that I did that, let's do 4. So 4 squared is 16 minus 9 times 4 is 36, right? So 16 minus 36 is going to be negative 20. Negative 20 plus 20 is 0. And so 4 is also the answer. So we have 2 roots here. We have the root of 5 and the root of 4 for the answer for this particular quadratic function. All right. And so don't forget, this is the formula. This is the function. So this is quadratic formula for the quadratic function. We use a formula for the functions. All right. Let's move on to another example. What do I do with this thing? Okay. For our next example, we have this. Negative 18x plus x squared equals negative 32. So the first thing that we need to do to be able to solve this is rearrange it so that we have x squared first, then the x term, and then move the the constant term, not the one with the variable, to the last place. So we have to move the 32 to the side, to the left, and it's going to be by adding it. And so it would look something like this. X squared, so this is rearranging. This is something that you should probably already know how to do. X squared minus 18x plus 32 equals 0. Okay, so that's that one right there. And so I'm going to switch markers because I think this marker is running out. And I think this one would be a little bit darker, so it might be a little bit better. So now what we need to do is put the quadratic formula. Oh, yeah, look at that. Beautiful. Negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Again, what is the a here? The a is super easy because it's a 1. That's pretty easy for all of us. I don't know how people could get that one wrong. So a is going to be 1. B is going to be negative 18. Again, negative and negative is positive. So it would be 18 plus minus square root of negative 18 squared minus 4 times 1 times 32 over 2 times 1. Well, you're going to use your calculator for this one because I don't know what 18 squared or 4 times 32 are. I could probably do that in my head. But let's work smart. Okay, so we're going to do negative 18 squared, which is 324. So x equals 18 plus minus 324 minus 4 times 32 is going to be 128 over 2. 324 minus 128 is 196. Look at that. That's 14. X equals 18 plus minus square root of 196 over 2. Square root of 196 is 14. I already know that. So we get two answers. We get 18 plus 14 divided by 2 and 18 minus 14 divided by 2. 18 plus 14 is going to be 32 if I'm not mistaken. I am not mistaken. Divided by 2 is 16. And 18 minus 14 is 4. Divided by 2 is 2. So I got 16 and 2. Again, what do we have to do? When we get here, we cannot just say, oh, these are the answers. No, we have to actually check. 16 squared is 256. And 18 times 16 is 288. So 256 minus 288 equals negative 32. Negative 32 plus 32 equals 0. That one's right. Now, what about 2? 2 squared is 4. 18 times 2 is 36. 4 minus 36 is negative 32. Negative 32 plus 32 is 0. That one's correct too. And that's how you do example number 2. Okay, so far so good. we have got nice whole number answers, meaning that they're not fractions, they're not decimals, or nothing like this. This example has to deal with the problems that we're actually going to have to be doing a lot for finding the zeros when we can't actually get whole numbers. Because the truth is that if you can get whole numbers, it's easier for you, instead of doing the whole quadratic formula, is to factor out. And you could have actually factored out, and the answers for the other ones would have been x minus, what was it? X minus 16, x minus 2, I think it was. Yep, x minus 16, x minus 2. And for the previous one, it would have been, if you factor it, obviously, x minus 5, x minus 4. And so you could have factored that, but I guarantee you cannot factor this. And the reason is because the factors are 5 and 1, and for 1 are 1 and 1. And so 5, what are you going to do to get the negative 3? There's nothing that you could do, because 5 minus 1 is not 3, it's 4. And 1 minus 5 is not 3, it's negative 4. So there's nothing that you could do to be able to get the negative 3. And this is where we actually need to find the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula, x equals negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Now what we need to do is put the numbers where the letters are, okay? So that we find out. So x equals, this one is the first time that we don't have the a be 1. It's something other than 1. It's a 5. So this is going to be a little bit tricky because of it. So let's start with the b. No, negative 3 and negative is positive, so it'd be 3 plus minus, and then we have square root of negative 3 squared, right? Negative 3 squared minus 4 times 5 minus 1. Remember, that's minus 1, not just 1. That's a negative 1 over 2 times 5. Okay, now let's actually get to this part right here, and we get x equals 3 plus minus square root of 9 minus 4 times 5 is 20, and negative 20, but this one is positive, so it's plus 20 over 10. X equals 3 plus square root of 29 over 10, and x equals 3 minus square root of 29 over 10. That's what I got for those. Yeah, that's correct. These are the answers. However, we need to approximate them. How do we approximate? You have to use a calculator. So what we're going to do is we're going to find what square root of 29 is, the approximation of it, then add 3 to that, then divide by 10. And I got my first answer to be approximately 0.8. How many decimal places does your book want it? It wants it to the 10,000ths. 10,000ths. So to the 4 decimal place. And this one would be square root of 29. 3 minus that. Divided by 10. Oh yeah, I did get the right answer. Negative 0.2385. If you look at your book, that's exactly what they got. They got negative, they got 0.8385, and negative 0.2385. And that would be it. So that is how you find the answer to problems that don't give us perfect whole numbers, but weird answers like this. And now we're going to go into example 4, which is a little bit different because it's going to have answers that are not real, extraneous answers. So we have to look at those because this is really important for you to know that not every time they're going to give you something like this that it's going to be true. By the way, you can check this, but it's going to take a long time. The best way to check it is with the graph. And your book literally says just graph it. So if you just graph it, let's not be lazy and let's graph it. Just trying to get rid of my inequalities here because I just did the inequality lesson. And cleared this one. It's going to be 5x squared minus 3x minus 1. So I graphed it. I have to go behind the camera because I don't know if you can see it. So I graphed it. Wow, look at this. The magic of focus. Focus, there we go. I graphed it right there. And so those are the answers. Those are important to leave there so that you understand. To be able to check the answers once you actually have the graph, you have to go to trace, right? So what we're going to do for second calc, right? Second calc. And we're going to go to the 0. Boom. And then let's get this 0. Left bound to the left of where the 0 is. And then right bound to the right of where the 0 is. I put it, boom. It's going to be about negative 0.2385. Look at that. Negative 0.2385. Yay! And now, for the other one, first of all, second, trace, 0. To the left is right here. To the right is right here. I got 0.8385. 0.8385. And that's how you check. All right, let's get into the fourth example now. All right, for the last example, we have 2x squared plus 3x minus 4 equals 0. Quadratic formula. Again, by now you should know it. X equals negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And we're just going to fill it out. So, negative b is going to be x equals negative 3 plus minus square root of 3 squared. Then we have minus 4ac, so minus 4 times 2, because a is 2. C is negative 4 over 2 times 2. X equals negative 3 plus minus square root of 9 plus, because negative and negative is positive. 4 times 4 is 16 plus 2 is 30, times 2 is 32 over 4. Okay, 9 plus 32 is 41. This doesn't make any sense. I thought I was going to get a whole number answer. Let me check. I didn't. Oops. I see what happened here. This is a positive. This makes it a whole difference right here. Because, and this is why you need to check when you write your problems and everything. Because if this is positive, then 4 times 4 is 16 times 2 is 32, but this is negative. 9 minus 32, it's going to give you negative 23. Now understand something. What is square root of negative 23? We don't know. This is not a real solution. Because remember, we don't know how to solve negative square root answers. We know how to solve for, let's say, square root of 25, that is positive -5. But square root of -25, we don't know. Not real. That's not real. So this is what happens. So when we get here, we have to say it gives us non-real solutions. So it's just two not real solutions. And that's what it says. The square root of a negative number cannot be taken, so there are no real solutions. Not a real solution. And that is it for lesson 110. So thank you. We have done 110 lessons. We are so close to being done. 10 more lessons. That's it. We literally have 5% of the book to go. Not 5%. Whew, my bad. 5% would be 6 lessons. 10% would be 12 lessons. We have less than 10% to go. Somewhere between, somewhere like 8%. 10 over 12 is 1/12. What is 1/12? Yep, it's about 8% left. It's 8 1/3% left. So it's about 8% left that we have of the class, not counting the test. Obviously, I can't forget those tests. So yeah, we are almost done. Yay! Have a good weekend.